important because the three women who shaped my life. My mother, who taught me the value of morality, my wife, who defined what I am, and my daughter, who continues to inspire me to achieve more. So when we started the AAG hospitals, we have about 6,000 employees. 60% of our employees are women. I saw it that 60% are women. And like C.V. Anand was saying, this has probably been the most productive thing. When we actually analyze the work productivity of women versus men, we found that it's women who are actually, in terms of hours per production, is much higher. Because whatever women do in the short time period, they do it very intensively. They concentrate, they have more loyalty to an institution. Men are, of course, having their chais, having their smoke sometimes outside and so on. And a lot of time goes into that, gossips and so on. I think this is a difference we have found in women. So when I was asked to deal with the complexities of women's health, of course, I look back, a little bit of gastroenterology I'll come to later, but mostly what is happening in this area. If you actually look at the brain of women and men, they are, in evolution, they have come differently. They evolved differently. If you look at 70,000 years back, women were being in the house and men used to be the hunters who used to get food. And women used to look after the rest of the things. So the brains have evolved. And there are a lot of differences between both the brains. And there are a lot of research in this area. For example, in the man, there's experiences like emotions, recollections is bigger than women. They have, and that's a very important point, I'll come to that later, it's much bigger. In women, the hippocampus critical to learning, memorization is larger than man and works a little different. They're two different parts. So in 2014, in the UPenn, researchers actually imaged the brains of 428 males and 500 females. And what did they find? The male's brain activity was more coordinated with the local brain regions, whereas in the female, the brains were coordinated throughout the brain. The activity was throughout the brain. This is very important because I'll tell you one very important fact, that we have two brains. One is called the primitive brain, which is an old brain. It is hypothalamus, hippocampus and so on. It deals with emotions, hunger. So when you get angry or when you react fast, it's this brain. So this brain reacts fast, so it's thinking fast. The second brain is the neo brain, that is human beings in evolution have developed these brains. It is a frontal cortex and all. This big brain that we have now is mostly this brain. And this brain thinks slowly. It is rational. So if you get angry at somebody because of your primitive brain, the new brain says no, cool down, rationalize, think what's the reason and so on. So all these road rages you see is primitive brain, and when you get down from the car you start arguing, it's the new brain. Research has now shown that in women, the new brain is much more active and much larger than the old brain. So that's the reason, although we have a misconception about this, that's the reason why when you have something to react to, women react more rationally, whereas men are more emotional. They get angry, they shout, they hit and so on. Whereas women thinks back, because in evolution, women has been made to think about things, when she thinks about the husband or man coming back with whatever is taken as hunting, how to look after the children, what's the next step to do, tomorrow what to do, all these thoughts come from the new brain. So mentally, there is very strong evidence that women are stronger than men. This is a fact. Unfortunately, this is very little recognized in the society. There's another factor to that, I'll come back to the gut a little later, but this is now very well established by very good research. So for a woman, you see there's so many things to balance: the work, children, society, home, health, family. So many things to balance. For man, it's only one thing, it's just his work that he has to manage. Everything else is secondary to him. He just goes and comes back and expects everything to be done. That's the reason why nature and evolution has decided to make the women's neocortex, that is the new brain, a little stronger and more functional. Now, all of you have, I can see this hall, there are many stars here sitting, many accomplished people. All of you actually have come through some very difficult period. Let me show you why. The challenges that make every woman in India, all of you a star. The reason is that first, she has survived the female feticide. 10% of potential women are lost due to female feticide. I think C.V. Anand also pointed out to this, 10%. She survived the neonatal period despite not being a celebration. 10% of girl children in our country are lost to pure access to health. 10%. We all managed to go to school because 20% of school dropout for girls are, and 40% of potential doctors are potentially lost because of this. If you take medical colleges today, if you look at the census, 60% of medical college students are women. 60%. But when you go to post-graduation, only hardly 10%, 20% are women. So there's a dropout happening there. I'll come to that a little later. So this is one of the issues. And of course, despite all the household chores and so on, you still had time to study and go to college. And in fact, in college, you did better than boys. Look at this data. Girls outshine boys in CBSE class 12. They do much better in general. They're more focused and they're devoted to certain aspects. So you are definitely because of the thing that. Now this again some very good research statistics that has come looking at depression and suicide rates. When you find that the prevalence of, in spite of all this, depressive disorders in women is higher than men. And these are very good statistics that came from the research society, the Psychiatry Society of India. And also you see what happens to prevalence of eating disorders is significantly higher among females. Because of this depression, they tend to eat more, they put on weight, the health is involved because of this. And look at the suicide rates among men and women. You'll find that in India, the ratio of male to female suicide rate is close to 1. Whereas in all other countries, every country in the world, there are more males committing suicide than women. But in India, India is the only country where it's equal. So this is something that is disturbing. We have to look into why this is happening. So these are disturbing. So what's the road ahead for us as women? What would the suggestions be? I think this is the very important concept that what STRI is having today, the concept today that let's work together to create a world where women's mental health is prioritized, understood and supported. We have a lot of research data now coming. We have to understand this data, see how it can be prioritized and how we can actually help to take it forward. So the future for what happens to women's health hangs on 3 pillars. It is education and awareness, reducing the stigma and holistic approach to health. So let me deal with these one by one, and these are very important messages that I'm giving to women, that how women mental and physical health can not only get better, because basically nature has made you superior to men. And we have to get to that, and this can be done. So this is a very famous saying by Malala, who got the Nobel Prize, of course, that let us remember, one book, one pen, one child, one teacher can change the world. She has always fought for women education, which has become very important. And I told you earlier that 10% dropout rates are happening, very high dropout rates for women in school and in the college. So education is very important, and there are 4 pillars on which education comes. Educate yourself. Encourage women to learn about mental health and common issues faced, available resources. This is not often done. I think you as leaders in this area should do this. You go back to your society, go back to your colleges, go back to your offices and educate women about this. Raise awareness, promote dialogue of women's health, what they face challenges. Empower others, that's very important. Promote initiatives that focus on mental health education. And of course, resilience is very important. Encourage the development of resilience, self-esteem. These are the 4 very important things that educating women should stand on. So let me tell you a little story of what we started doing. What happened in India was that in India now there are, in the field of gastroenterology, there are 3,000 gastroenterologists registered, 3,000. Out of the 3,000 gastroenterologists, only 300, 10% are women, right? Now even worse is in gastroenterology we do a lot of surgeries, endoscopic surgeries to cure ulcers, to remove cancers and so on. Only 5 women in India, only 5 are doing this. For 1.4 billion population, unbelievable. Only 5 are doing it. So what happened was, I said, no, this is not right. Because if we take in US, or if we take in Europe, take in Japan, 50% of gastroenterologists are women. There are 10,000 gastroenterologists in a small country in Japan, women gastroenterologists doing all these surgeries. And a population of 1.4 billion, India only 5 are doing it. And this is statistics which the world got shocked when we put it out as a research paper. So I said, okay, let's change this. So what I did was this year in February, I invited the world's top women endoscopists to come to Hyderabad, gastrointestinal endoscopists to come to Hyderabad, the top people. All of them came, and you can see them, they are from all different countries. And we asked them to inspire our women to start doing this procedure, start being gastroenterologists. They spent 3 days doing this, doing surgeries, procedures, doing why women can do. And in 6 months time after this meeting, in 6 months time, from 5, we have now gone to 100 women doing procedures. So this type of thing is very important for us to inspire. And of course, I had consequences of that. I had about 10 letters threatening my life by male chauvinists who said, how can you do this? Why are you encouraging women? That's a story apart, but still, our society is still so male dominated that we are not able to accept. This is wrong. We have to, as leaders, accept the fact that women are particularly capable of doing great things. In fact, the best endoscopic surgeries in the world are done by at least women I know. They're much better. If I had a problem, I would get my surgery done by them rather than by men. Because they're so good at their hands are very good, their handwork is very good. So I think the second important thing is the stigma that is there in mental health, and Deepika Podanki very rightly said that every time we talk about mental health, we make it easier for someone else to talk about it. And I think this is very important. We should reduce the stigma. We should challenge the stigma, encourage women to speak openly about mental health. A lot of people are depressed. It's an endogenous depression that are there in the homes that they don't come out with because they don't have access to talk to people, their friends and so on. People should come out and talk. Women should talk about it. They should seek professional help, cultivate healthy relationships and social connections. There was a very important study. The biggest study in medicine was done by Harvard Medical School, where they looked at all the CEOs coming out of Harvard Business School, many of them women, and followed them for 70 years. Some of them became CEOs, presidents and so on, and found that those who had the best social connections, social interactivity, lived the longest, lived the healthiest life. So again, in our villages, women used to have social groups. They were talking about each other, gossiping. And in a city like this, Hyderabad, sometimes you're living in a flat, isolated. You only contact your husband, your children, and you're looking after them. You don't have enough time to develop the social contact. These social connections are very important, and we must encourage them to develop these social connections. And I think SRI is a forum which can do it very easily. The third important thing is about health. Michelle Obama very famously said that we women need to do a better job of putting ourselves higher on to do this list. That is, you all the time as women you're saying, how is my husband's health, how is my children's health? We don't look after our own health. And this becomes very important because there's a very perfect balance between physical and mental health. And here is where I tell you about how a gastroenterologist comes in, because gut health is now becoming extremely important. And this is some of the data I'm showing you is extremely new research, not even in textbooks of medicine, but it's going to become very important in the future, that our whole body is controlled by bacteria in our gut. You think you're controlling your body, exercising, you build muscles. You think you're running, you build muscles. No, it's a bacteria in the body. 90% of our body is bacteria, only 10% is human cells. 90%. They are invisible, we don't know about them. And now we come to know about them. They control everything in our body, the bacteria. And women can control the bacteria because they are the ones who cook food. Our bacteria are predominantly because of what we eat and what we do. So this is a very important aspect. And our brain, heart is controlled by gut bacteria. There is a crosstalk all the time. In fact, the gut-brain connection is very clear now. All the time, the bacteria are producing some chemicals which is going into the brain, depression, excitement, everything is because of that. And it's There is crosstalk happening continuously between both. This was a video anyway. So, in fact, it has been shown very clearly that, for example, there are some people who exercise very actively. I think this Anand goes for a run and plays cricket and very actively. You know why? Because it's got a certain bacteria which is encouraging him to do this. There are in you, all of you, bacteria which encourage you to do that and bacteria which discourage to do that. There are some patients who tell me, I want to lie down. Women, they become very obese in middle age, they're all the time lying down. They say, we don't know why, we want to but we can't, because of this certain bacteria. And now we have the capability to control this bacteria, change this bacteria, because we understand this is also very new, because our bacterial content is based upon right from the childhood. We have done a lot of research in this area and we found that those children who are born out of vaginal delivery, not cesarean, those children who are breastfed for 6 months, and those children whom no antibiotics were used in the first 6 months have the healthiest gut bacteria. We used to do all this, but unfortunately now cesareans are being done. We do antibiotics are given for small diarrheas, and of course breastfeeding becomes very rare. By 2 months, 3 months, weaning is done now. Now it is very clear from the data that if you do vaginal delivery, 6 months breastfeeding, no antibiotics, these people have healthy bacteria. So when you look back, maybe part of the blame for what happened to your body now is because of what happened in your childhood, what they did to your childhood. So, but we can change it now. We can change it with the new research that we have. Because a lot of things that, even puberty, pregnancy, all this change the bacteria. That's why in women, the bacteria is very dynamic. We have looked at bacteria, gut microbiome by special research where we do a DNA genomic analysis of the whole gut. This is a very recent research which has come only recently. For the world it's available and we are doing it. And we found that the gut bacteria in women are much stronger than in men. It's just that because of all these misuses they're getting weak and weaker. So again, women determine how the bacteria are, how you feed your thing, all these probiotic type of foods, extremely healthy. Diversity of bacteria increases again. So you as women can actually change the physical health, mental health of the whole family by these usage of these and how you cook your food. For example, tryptophan, which comes from someone that has shown to produce serotonin, melatonin. So somebody is depressed or excited is partly because of this from bacteria. Similarly, you see in nuts, they can produce dopamine, epinephrine in the brain, again because of. So the food determines, and you can determine how your family eats and how your family's mental well-being is. Because, for example, we know that low tyrosine causes low dopamine, and we know all the foods that can give rise to high thyroid. So all this data is very, very new, and I think again to emphasize that you are the central figure for controlling what happens to the whole family. And that's why I'm so grateful for my mother. I'm sure she didn't know all this, but at least she gave me the right type of bacteria in the gut so that I function better. I think this is, again, Kofi Annan said very clearly that there's no tool for development more effective than empowerment of women. I think this is absolutely true. And we men have a role to play in this. First of all, we have to encourage and support, very, very important. We have to share household responsibilities. Unfortunately, I'm also guilty to some extent because you go home late in the night, you're tired, you think your wife does everything. We don't realize that she also had a long day, she had a tiring day. It's part that we should take responsibilities. We have to promote a work-life balance, which is very important. Act as allies and advocates for women. I think this is again very important. And foster an open communication. This is again very important. You find in the houses that women try and tell something to the very dominant man who just dismisses it off. Oh, you don't know anything, I know everything. So this is again very, very wrong. It's on our part to create a dialogue so we understand, at least listen to what they're saying, dialogue. And very often, at least from my wife, I get wise wisdom many times. I wouldn't have thought of this, but she'll tell very obviously, sometimes the wisdom comes in a woman's brain which a man doesn't have the capacity to take because of this neocortex, because you're better evolved. So this becomes very important. So I believe that for women, it's caring for oneself is not self-indulgence, it's self-preservation. It starts taking care of your overall health. And I think you taking care of not only your health, but influence the health of the family, health of the nation. And again, I think the vital role you're playing, we acknowledge. Hopefully all of us men also join in this to create this awareness, and again to acknowledge that we are because of you. Thank you very much, because